At dawn, the world feels quiet. The sky above a forgotten island in the Pacific is soft gray, the air still heavy with last night's rain. Rows of curved metal huts stand in silence, half buried in sand and grass. Their arching roofs catch the early light, glimmering faintly like shells left behind by a vanished tide. There is no movement, only wind. It presses gently against corrugated steel, a low metallic whisper that has lasted more than 80 years. These huts were never meant to last this long. They were designed for war, for movement, not permanence, for men who would never stay in one place long enough to call it home. Yet here they are, still standing, long after their purpose was forgotten. Once, thousands of these structures stretched across oceans. From the jungles of Burma to the snowfields of Alaska, they housed engineers, medics, and soldiers, men building airstrips, repairing engines, or simply trying to sleep while rain drummed endlessly above their heads. Their form was strange, almost primitive, a perfect half-circle, thin sheets of steel bent into a shape that seemed too simple to endure. But the curve hid genius. It resisted wind, deflected blast, and shed heat. It was both fragile and strong, light yet unyielding. And behind that shape lay one of the quietest marvels of World War II. A structure so efficient, so adaptable, that it would outlive the conflict that gave it birth. So what made this humble, arched hut a survivor of storms, bombs, and jungle heat? What secrets of design allowed simplicity to triumph over chaos? This is the story of the Quonset hut, the architecture of endurance. In 1941, the world was unraveling. Across continents, armies were moving faster than logistics could follow. Ships carried weapons and men to distant, uncertain fronts. But shelter, the most basic need, lagged behind. The U.S. Navy faced a question of quiet urgency. How could it house tens of thousands of men in every possible environment, from tropical islands to frozen tundra, using materials that could be shipped flat, assembled quickly, and survive almost anything? The answer began at a small naval base in Rhode Island, Quonset Point. Here, a team of engineers and architects from George A. Fuller Company gathered in secrecy and speed. They had weeks, not months. Their task was clear: create a portable building that could be built by untrained hands, with nothing more than simple tools and time. The result was a corrugated arch of galvanized steel, resting lightly on a wooden frame. No deep foundations, no heavy machinery. Each unit arrived as a kit, flat-packed, numbered, and ready. 24 men could raise one in a single day. The structure drew on an ancient principle, the power of the arch. It distributed weight evenly, allowing thin steel to resist enormous stress. Inside, it was open and airy, free of pillars or corners. It could serve as a barracks, a field hospital, a chapel, or a command post, all by rearranging simple panels and flooring. By 1942, they were everywhere. The huts rose in deserts, jungles, and frozen ports. They became symbols of American mobility, temporary, efficient, and universal. But no one yet knew how much these curved shelters would endure, or how deeply they would root themselves in the story of the modern world. The Quonset hut was, at its heart, a study in restraint. No decoration, no wasted material. Every line served purpose, and every curve was there for survival. Compared to the wooden barracks of earlier wars, the difference was immediate. Wood rotted in the jungle, warped in rain, and burned easily. Canvas tents were faster to erect, but they leaked, tore, and suffocated in tropical heat. The Quonset steel skin, by contrast, was indifferent to weather. It neither swelled nor shrank. It echoed softly with the rhythm of rain, but it endured. Its half-cylinder form was mathematically efficient. The arch distributed pressure downwards and outward, allowing the thin steel sheets to hold firm against high winds or shockwaves. In tests, huts withstood bomb blasts that splintered nearby buildings. When hurricanes swept through island bases, they flexed, rattled, but rarely collapsed. Engineers studied heat and airflow within. In humid climates, vents were cut along the ridge to release trapped air. In colder regions, insulation and oil stoves turned them into warm, dry shelters. Every problem had a quiet, mechanical answer. More than a building, it was a system. One model could be extended endlessly, joined together in rows, converted into offices or machine shops. The parts were standardized, replaceable anywhere in the world. Like the vehicles and weapons it sheltered, the hut embodied industrial logic, simplicity that multiplied itself. It was also psychological. For soldiers far from home, its curved interior felt both strange and familiar. A man-made cave, protective yet open. It reminded them that design could be kind without luxury, resilient without pride. Through its form, the Quonset hut became something more than a shelter. It was a philosophy rendered in steel. By 1944, the Quonset hut had spread like a quiet metal tide across the war, on beaches, airfields, jungles, and bombed cities. Wherever men arrived, curved silhouettes followed. They were assembled under rain, beneath gunfire, and in the dim glow of lanterns. Each bolt tightened was a step toward order in a landscape of chaos. In the Pacific, they rose beside palm trees and rusting tanks, medical wards, command centers, radio outposts. Inside, the air smelled of sweat, oil, and ink. Typewriters clicked. Field surgeons worked beneath hanging lamps. Outside, the jungle pressed close, alive with the hiss of insects and distant gunfire. But the steel curves stood unmoved. In Europe, Quonsets appeared amid ruins. Allied engineers cleared debris from shattered cities and erected these strange new structures on the bare earth. In days, empty lots became hospitals, kitchens, classrooms. Civilians watched the half-circles multiply. Small monuments to rebuilding amid devastation. Even the enemy took notice. Captured German officers inspected them with quiet admiration, noting the efficiency, the speed. In war, beauty often dies in function, yet here the two met. A structure born for conflict became a silent instrument of recovery. There were moments when their resilience was tested to its limit. Bomb fragments tore through some. Fires blackened others. Yet most endured long enough for new missions to begin inside their walls. In a world consumed by destruction, these modest arches represented something rare: continuity. Each hut carried within it the quiet persistence of human design, unheroic, unnoticed, but enduring. The war moved forward. Empires collapsed. Front lines shifted. But wherever the U.S. Army went, the huts remained. Half shelters, half symbols of a future being built in the ruins of the old. When the war ended, the Quonset hut did not. It lingered, in silence, in steel, in the spaces where soldiers once slept. Across Europe and the Pacific, their corrugated shells became the bones of a new beginning. In Britain, thousands were repurposed as emergency housing. Families displaced by bombings moved into them, bringing warmth where there had been only utility. Children played in the curved shadows. Mothers hung curtains across the arched windows. The same steel that had faced typhoons and fire now echoed with laughter and domestic quiet. In America, they reappeared on college campuses, makeshift dormitories for returning veterans. Filled universities faster than they could build, so Quonsets became temporary towns of knowledge. Inside, chalk dust replaced gun oil. Where once orders were typed, now essays were written. Around the world, they adapted. In tropical Africa, they served as clinics. In Asia, as workshops and stores. Their design crossed borders without translation. Anyone with a wrench and a steady hand could build one. Decades later, many still stood, rusted but resolute. Some became museums, others forgotten storage sheds behind airports or harbors. The world moved on, chasing taller glass and steel, but the humble curve endured in silence. Architects studied them anew, the efficiency, the minimalism, the unintentional grace. They saw in those arches not just wartime necessity, but an early language of sustainable design. Light materials, low cost, easy repair. In their afterlife, Quonset huts told a quiet story that sometimes the architecture of survival becomes the architecture of renewal, and that a structure meant to shelter soldiers could, in peace, shelter the slow rebuilding of ordinary life. In the end, the Quonset hut is more than a building. It is an idea of how simplicity, when guided by necessity, can outlast the chaos that created it. Each curve of steel tells a story of adaptation. It began as a military solution, yet became a symbol of resilience in the civilian world. Designed to endure wind, fire, and salt air, it also endured time. Its shape, unpretentious, efficient, mirrored the mindset of an era forced to solve problems quickly and permanently. Architects often speak of beauty as a product of intention, but in the Quonset hut, beauty was a byproduct of purpose. Every bolt, every rib, every line existed because it had to, and yet, when seen from a distance, silhouetted against fog or jungle rain, it possessed a quiet grace, a rhythm that echoed human perseverance. Its persistence through decades reveals something about human nature itself, that even in war, invention is not always destruction. Sometimes it is creation under pressure, design born not of luxury, but of survival. The Quonset reminds us that form and function, when bound together, can transcend their moment. In the rusting shells that still stand today, on farms, coasts, and forgotten airfields, one can still sense that wartime hum of purpose. A sound that spoke of engineers working through the night, of logistics officers tracing blueprints under dim light, of a civilization improvising under strain. The Quonset hut endures not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. And perhaps that is why, long after the last soldier left the Pacific, the curve remains, a soft echo of a hard time, a testament to what humanity can build when survival demands simplicity.